She's home. She's online. I know. She was tired. We ran around and did a lot of stuff today.
You like doing this?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
I can hear everything you're saying.
Okay, I'm ready when you are. Shabbat Shalom and welcome everyone. As we know, Linda Goodman, Director of Sacred Music, is on a well-deserved vacation. She returns next Shabbat, yet Kos Revaya, our cup overflows. Our cup runneth over. As soloist and ritual chair, Lisa Siegel serves tonight as our Shlichat HaTzibur, our service leader. We are in for a treat, made all the sweeter as it's Tu B'Av, but more on that later. We now invite Dawn Tendler to lead us as we turn to page 120. For those on Zoom or YouTube or Vimeo, who, should you need a Siddur, our prayer book for tonight's service, just follow the link from our website.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, Sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with his word,
Chata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlich ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Joan. Let's turn to page 125, and I invite you to read together with me. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat abide. On page 138, and then on page 139 is Lecha Dodi, as we continue to welcome Shabbat. We welcome Shabbat as a bride. As has become our custom here, we'll be singing, in addition to the melody of Lecha Dodi, the first, the second, and then the 9th verses of the prayer.
Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmiyanu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem u'tiferet v'litila Lecha Dodi likra kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki mikor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tehila Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha uv'tzochola Tochemunei am segula Boi chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela.
We now turn to page 144, page 144, as Lisa leads us in the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yit gadol ve'yit kadash meraba.
Amen.
V'alma divrach yirutei v'amlich malchutei. B'chai yechonu v'yomechon uv'chai edechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv. V'yimeru, amen. Yehesh meraba mevorach, le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yithaleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha, brichu. Leila min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram b'alma ve'yimeru. Amen.
We rise. We invite those who are able to rise, page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
I read on page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from night, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzibaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv v'aravim. On page 150, we read together in English. Everlasting love,
you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. Our service continues, page 154. Lisa will be singing a translation of the Ve'ahavta in English this evening. You shall love. We'll hear the Ve'ahavta in Hebrew a little later in our service during our Torah service tonight.
And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, and upon your gates, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Our prayer before Mi Chamocha. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives and we can begin to change the world. And then you live within our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. Mi Chamocha, our prayer for freedom, page 158.
Ya bum bum bim bim bum, ya ba bum bum bim bum, ya bum bum bim bim bum, ya ba bum bum bim bum, ya die 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 die, ya ba bum bum bim bum, ya die 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 die, ya ba bum bum bim bum. Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi chamocha neder bakodesh. No rati Lord, oh Seifel, no rati Lord, oh Seifel. Ya bum bum bim bim bum, ya ba bum bum bim bum, ya bum bum bim bim bum, ya ba bum bum bim bum, ya die 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 die, ya ba bum bum bim bum, ya die 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 die, ya ba bum bum bim bum.
Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Praise to you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. On page 160 is Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, our prayer, page 160, towards the bottom of the page.
Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim Yerushalayim. Shalom. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukkot. Shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
On page 162, at the top of the page, is Vishamru, our prayer for Shabbat.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. Beni uven bnei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru bnei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, La'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam.
Page 165. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Our service continues, page 164. We invite those who are able to rise for the tefillah. We'll be chanting the prayers on the right-hand pages, the even-numbered pages, beginning page 164, continuing to page 170.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, L'man shemo b'ahava. Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen. Baruch atah Adonai. Magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai. Mechaye hakol atah Rab le'hoshiach. Mechalkel chayim b'chesed. Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Shomech noflim v'rofei cholim. Umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato. Lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot. Umido melach. Melech memit umechaye. Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'nemanat lehachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai. Mechaye hakol.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God.
Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. Our rabbis instruct that shalom is the ultimate purpose of the whole Torah. The Midrash teaches all that is written in the Torah was written for the sake of peace. Midrash Tanhuma. In a world replete with violence, injustice, and distortions, where dictators wage war and where writers are attacked, in a time when demagogues increasingly stoke division, as we conclude this segment of our worship, let us reflect upon how we might attain shalom in our lives, families, community, people, nation, and world. We sing Shalom Rav for abundant peace, page 178.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atah Melech Adon Lechol hashalom. Ki atah Melech Adon Lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amecha Yisrael. B'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Silent prayer is found on page 180.
Ose shalom bimroma, huyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Our Torah service this evening begins on page 364. We invite those who are able to rise. We'll be singing Ki Mitzion as the Torah is taken from the Ark.
Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Udevar Adonai mirushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
Please be seated. There is an old joke, perhaps familiar to many in this room, definitely familiar to Alexis and to Paul, because I told it to them earlier this week. The ritual committee and rabbi are at a loss. Half the congregants want to stand for the Shema, the other half wants to remain seated. Dawn's already nodding, you know this joke. Each are yelling at the other to alter their practice. So the board of the synagogue suggests the rabbi consult one of the original founders of the synagogue, now a very old man. The rabbi takes with him to the nursing home a representative of each faction of the congregation, the standers and the sitters. The representative whose followers stand during the Shema came forward and asked, "Is it the tradition to stand during this prayer?" The old man answered, "No, that is not the tradition." "Aha," exclaimed the other representative, "so the tradition is to sit during the Shema?" And the old man responded, "No, that is not the tradition." The rabbi, looking bereft, lamented, "But the congregants fight all the time, yelling at each other about whether they should sit or stand." The old man interrupted, exclaiming, "That is the tradition." In truth, it was our Reform movement that introduced the regular practice to remain standing for the Shema as a way of highlighting how these words from this week's Torah portion are central to Judaism and summarize our faith's tenets: one God in relationship with Israel, the Jewish people, a God of freedom. In the Torah itself, as in our prayer book, and you'll be seeing it momentarily in the Torah, two letters of the phrase, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, two letters, the ayin in Shema at the end of that word, and the dalet at the end of Echad. Those two letters are written enlarged. We see this in the Torah, and what happens is when you take these two letters together, they spell or form the word aid, and the word aid means witness. We are to be reminded that in focusing on these words, we too become witnesses to the age-old and life-affirming bonds of hope and meaning that we in turn help to transmit to others. Happily, in our congregation, the recitation of the Shema engenders no dispute. not when you were chair of the ritual committee, not during your tenure either, right now as being chair of the ritual committee. This does not engender dispute. At least there is one task force we need not create for when to rise up and sit down. Indeed, may we find ourselves ever more comfortable together as a community, as we determine to bear witness to the Torah's inspiration encapsulated within the Shema, and in so doing, with good humor and steadfast resolve, bring strength to ourselves and to those around us. Now, our Torah portion is the Shema and the first paragraph, the Ve'ahavta, and so please don't be shy. Please join. Come on up onto the bima if you haven't been up for an aliyah in a long time. If not ever, here's an opportunity to do so and join with us, and you'll see how our tradition's most important words are written. So don't be shy. Please come forward. Don't be shy. Here we go. So you're going to be vouching for everybody here, okay? So I'll actually I'm just going to do a lead in to it, so we'll begin right there. And so our blessing, Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam vahed. Amen. I'm going to start just a little bit before the Shema. V'zot hamitzvot hakim v'hamishpatim, and these are the commandments and the rules and laws. Asher tziva Adonai Elohechem, that Adonai your God, l'lamed etchem, has instructed to you, la'asot ba'aretz, in order for you to do in the land, asher atem ovrim shama l'rishta, that you are crossing in order to occupy. Laman tira et Adonai Elohecha, to have awe for Adonai your God, lishmor et kol hukotav, and to observe all of God's laws and mitzvotav and commandments, asher anachi mitzavcha ata uvenecha uven venecha kol yemei chayecha, that God says, I am commanding to you, to your child and to your children's children, all the days of your life. Laman yurachun yamecha, so that you may lengthen your days. Shemata Yisrael, that you should listen, Israel, Shmarta, and observe la'asot, asher yitavlach, that which is good for you. Ve'asher tirbun ma'od, and that will make you multiply greatly. Asher diber Adonai Elohei avotecha, as Adonai, the God of your ancestors, has said, Lacha eretz zvat chalav udvash, a land going to a land flowing with milk and honey. And here we are, and you can see the big ayin in the Torah and the big dalet, hence why in the prayer book as well to show that, and again showing the word aid. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, and you shall love the Lord your God, b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, v'chol nafshecha, with all your soul, v'chol modecha, and with all your might. V'hiyu hadavirim ha'ela, take these words, asher anachi mitzavcha chayom, which I command you this day, alavavcha, upon your heart. V'shinantam levanecha, and you shall teach them to your children. V'dibarta b'am, and speak of them b'shivtecha, v'veitecha, when you are in your home, v'lechtecha v'derech, when you're on your way, v'shochbacha uvkamecha, when you lie down, when you rise up. Ukshartam laot al yadecha, you shall bind them as a sign upon your hand. V'hayu latatafot beinenecha, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes. Uvchaftem mezuzot al beitecha uvisharecha, and you shall write them or inscribe them upon the gates of your house. and upon your gates. And our blessing after. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. And I ask that we rise as we either remain standing or rise as the Torah will be dressed and return to the Ark. Eitz Chaim, he will be on page 374. Hayim hi Oma Sinkin Ba Vetom Hecha Men Derachem Darchenom Bechol netivotecha shalom Ashivenu Adonai Benashuva Kadesh Yabneinu Edem. Please be seated. As we offer the blessing for healing this Shabbat, we are mindful of Bob Barash, Max Berkowitz, Steve Cooper, Tyler Davidson, Robert Dower, Phil Feynman, Gerald Friedkin, Kelly Lynn Hickey, Amoret Zviamina Bat Zvi Hirsch Ve'ita, Miss Emma Lee, Kevin Lembo, Yvette Mickenberg, Art Phillips, David Rubinsky, Raj Schoonmaker, Michael Schwartz, Jules Smatroff, and Alan Stein. There are also those for whom we pray privately, and we pray for people the world over still fighting COVID-19. For those in our sanctuary, please share aloud the names of people for whom we likewise pray publicly this Shabbat.
Len Siegel.
And for those on Zoom, we invite you to unmute and say aloud the names of people for whom we likewise pray this Shabbat. For all, may the Holy One send healing and shelter in protection. Misha Berach, page 371. Be'erach avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. The lesson of Judaism is to have hope. Think of Israel's national anthem, aptly named Hatikva. Hatikva, the hope. That is hope in freedom, hope in independence. But what are we to make of past calamities, or of, at times, the sorrowful conditions of the present? The answer is to never lose hope, to keep faith with a source of goodness. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy, explains one of my favorite biblical verses from Psalm 126. It means that sometimes our sense of satisfaction emanates out of our struggles, that disappointment, loss, frustration can nonetheless lead to blessing. Notice how things come full swing, from weeping to shouts of joy. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. We are counseled that even after heartbreak or sadness, it's possible to again feel happiness and celebrate life. Our Jewish calendar, so integral to Jewish identity, offers the same message. In Israel, Yom HaZikaron, Israel's somber Memorial Day, immediately precedes the celebration of Yom HaAtzmaut, Independence Day. So too this very week, a similar phenomenon occurs. Sunday was Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the month of Av, commemorating many tragedies seared into Jewish memory. The destruction of the first and second temples in Jerusalem, the fall of Betar, as well as crusades, massacres, expulsions, pogroms, the Holocaust, and terror attacks. On Tisha B'Av, we sow in tears, honoring those who clung to their Jewish identities to the very last, as we likewise identify with the stateless and the homeless. Yet Tisha B'Av is followed by weeks of comfort, manifest in the weekly Haftarot read this Shabbat and all the way to Rosh Hashanah. Beginning with the words this week from Isaiah chapter 40, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, comfort, oh comfort my people, says your God. Each Sabbath is dedicated to the themes of hope and renewal. Moreover, like Yom HaZikaron flipping into Yom HaAtzmaut, almost immediately after Tisha B'Av, there's celebration, as today's observance of Tu B'Av, the 15th of the month of Av, testifies to. Now, admittedly, Tu B'Av is an obscure Jewish holiday. Many knowledgeable Jews are utterly unaware of it. Just imagine hanging out in the kosher aisle of the ShopRite and asking any customers there, what have you planned for Tu B'Av? Chances are good they'll be perplexed, if not quickly retreat from that aisle. Then again, should they spend time here at B'nai Israel or receive our announcements like this week's Tu B'Av heart graphics, they might be amongst the initiated. Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, not to be confused with Tu B'Shvat, the 15th of Shvat, the Jewish New Year for trees. Tu B'Av also goes back 2 millennia. The Mishnah explains, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, there were no days as joyous for Israel. There were no days as joyous for Jews as the 15th of Av, Tu B'Av, and the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. For on them the maidens of Jerusalem used to go out dressed in white garments. And thus they went out and danced in the vineyards, saying, Young men, look and observe well whom you are about to choose as a spouse. Regard not beauty alone, but rather look to a virtuous family, for gracefulness is deceitful and beauty is a vain thing, but the woman that has awe for God, she is worthy of praise. Proverbs 31. And it is also said, Proverbs 31, give her of the fruit of her hands and let her own works praise her in the gates. Now, as this Mishnah is explaining, long before JDate, Hinge, Bumble, and the like, let alone school dances, there was a big singles event in the vineyards near Jerusalem. Eligible women forming a chorus line dressed in white would sing and dance, hoping to catch the eye of a suitable mate. Even couples of different tribes might be matched on Tu B'Av. The dresses might be borrowed, lest anyone be embarrassed for not owning the proper attire. The music that night wasn't exactly Glenn Miller or Little Richard or Led Zeppelin, rather than a romantic vibe by Barry White. Instead, the message was a caution from the book of Proverbs, the Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor prayer. Still, the ideal expressed was one of possibility and connection, a potential for joy and delight. The holiday is also discussed by Maimonides, 1135 to 1204. The Rambam wrote of the festivities, they chose the 15th of Av because it was upon that day that the plague that struck the generation of the wilderness ended in the 40th year. Many of that generation died each Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. In the last year of traveling through the wilderness, none died. The people waited with no further loss of life until the middle of the month, the 15th. Then they were confident and sure of their safety. They sensed the Creator's favor and marked that day henceforth as a day of celebration and joy. Unpacking this a bit, Maimonides links the holiday to the trek of Israelites in the Torah. As we know, as punishment for seeking to return to Egypt, a generation is left to wander in the wilderness until a new generation arises, one lacking a slave mentality. And it is this new generation that will cross the Jordan into Israel. Maimonides thus proposes that on Tu B'Av, the people recognized that the worst had ended, and as such, there was relief and celebration. Fast forward centuries. Revitalized in Israel, at first by secular kibbutzniks during the 1920s, and about the same time, a forward-thinking Orthodox woman in Poland also celebrated Tu B'Av as a holiday for Jewish girls, albeit with a sense of female empowerment and solidarity, as girls would encamp together in the woods for bonfires and dancing, though this did not catch on as what would be its typical observance. Tu B'Av is now a type of Jewish Valentine's Day. As one source relates, the entertainment and beauty industries work overtime. It's a full moon. Some will take a midnight or a nighttime stroll. Tu B'Av has become a time for weddings and marriage proposals. Some Orthodox rabbis have made it a global day of shidduchim, of matchmaking. And for a small fee, will add a person's name to the list for whom they will pray might find a match. Of course, both in Israel and throughout the Jewish world, many, if not most Jews and their dear ones, will not have scheduled special romantic plans or sipping champagne or feasting on chocolate, or in the spirit of the past, if not in a relationship, plan to spend the day swiping on a singles app. nor will we all be able to dance the hora around a bonfire in the woods, especially given the current drought precautions. But that doesn't mean that all can't appreciate the holiday. Returning to the Bible's guidance, we are taught that those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. All of us know, have known, or will know struggle. As such, those women in the vineyard long ago counsel us on how to proceed. They warn us not to be misled or overly distracted by the superficial. Rather, character is what's paramount. What matters most is decency, integrity, honesty, and humility. Hence, be it Tu B'Av or now Shabbat, let us pause to express joy and hope, partaking of special treats and appreciating inspirational wisdom. Do something fun, eat something tasty over the next day, and in remembrance of some of the girls of pre-war Poland, savor empowerment and solidarity. We know plagues remain ongoing, but as we mine our past for guidance, we still have hope for a time when all might at last reap joy. Ken Yehi Ratzon, be this God's will.
Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. It's the song of the dreamer, from the dark place it grows, like a flower in the desert, the oasis of our souls. Come back, where we belong. You who hear our longing sighs, our mouths, our lips are filled with song. You can see our tear-filled eyes. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Will reap in joy.
Thank you. We now turn to page 586. We invite those who are able to rise for the Aleinu. The Aleinu that we chant is the second paragraph down on the page 586.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latei gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, velo samanu kamishbechot hadama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Please be seated. V'ne'emar is on page 391. Pardon me, 591.
V'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad Ushamo, Ushamo, Ushamo Echad.
Page 598. At this moment in our service, we now call to mind our own beloved dead. We pray on their behalf. We voice the confidence that they are remembered for blessing. I ask that those in mourning, remembering the anniversary of the death of a loved one, to please rise if you are able when their name is mentioned. During Shloshim, we remember Helen Slutsky, wife of Herb and Hank Meyerowitz. We remember the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Augusta Decker, Samuel R. Ellman, Rebecca Fine, Max Garber, Emmanuel Gelfand, Sue Strisick Grossman, Dr. Jack Kaplan, Jack N. Leonard, Benjamin Leopold, Morris N. Levy, Melvin J. Milson, Bertha Mirror, Franklin G. Nathanson, Leona Tendler, and Lois Zeidler. We ask our worshipers in the sanctuary, should you have a dear one to add, please rise and say their names now. We ask our online worshipers on Zoom to unmute and say the name of any beloveds to add. For those in our sanctuary, should you wish, we invite you to offer a short remembrance of a dear one on our Kaddish list. Please raise your hand for the microphone. We remember the dead from COVID-19 and the Ukrainian victims of Russia's invasion. Each Shabbat, we also mention 6 names amongst the 6 million murdered in the Holocaust, the Shoah. This week, we remember Chaya Chernecki, Eliezer Chernetsky, Tzvi Chernetsky, Falk Cherniak, Meir Cherniak, and Arya Cherniak. In remembrance and solidarity, and on behalf of those for whom there is no one but us to say Kaddish, we now invite all to rise, if you are able. Our Kaddish prayer, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra hirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei d'kudasha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zuchanam levracha, may their memories be for blessing. Let us say amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Alexis. Our trustee, Alexis Zimmerman, has this week's announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining us for Shabbat this evening, whether online through Zoom or YouTube or in person. Thank you, Rabbi and Lisa, and thank you, Paul Medina, for tonight's tech. For those on Zoom, Rabbi will first be in the social hall after services. He will log on around 8:45 p.m. or so to say week. Adam Wisniewski becomes a bar mitzvah. Our Friday night service is at 7:30 p.m. and the Shabbat morning service will be at 10 a.m. on August 20th. Next Friday night, August 19th, the sing-along returns at 7 p.m. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, thank you. Sing-along will be back next week at 7. Adam Wisniewski becomes a bar mitzvah next Shabbat. For those on Zoom, about 8:45 or so, I'll log in to say hi. And again, thank you so much. Paul, what a wonderful, we did great tonight. Lisa, thank you so much. Just beautiful. Our closing hymn, found on page 625, a very familiar one, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'ed Nasa V'hefsar Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Vehu haya, vehu hoveh, vehu yiyeh, v'tifara, vehu echad, v'ein sheni, lehamshilo, lehachbira, beli reshit, beli tachlit, velo haoz, v'hamisra, v'hu eli, v'chai goali, v'tzor hevli, v'yetzara, v'hu nisi, umanosli, menat kosi, beyom lekra, beyado, Afkid ruchi, be'tishan ve'ayira, ve'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira.
Page 123. We join together in Kiddush, which will be followed by Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho v'yahava u'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'charta V'yotanu kidashta Mikol ha'amim B'shabbat kodshecha V'ahava u'ratzon Hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Sneis HaShabbat Amen. Oh, that's my favorite. Very sweet wine that if the kid was here this week, he would not be disappointed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Amen. May God's presence be with you and give you peace. Shabbat shalom. And we thank Stephen Rips, our president, for the challah this evening and for our refreshments. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.